everyone, Flora Uzoka here, your QuickBooks Online Certified Pro Advisor. In this video, I will show you the different invoice status in QuickBooks Online. Knowing an invoice status is very important in managing cash flow, tracking payment, and making informed financial decisions. Let me show you the different invoice status as we dive into the software now. If you want to see the status of all the invoices you have in your company, what you need to do, you go to the sales menu on the navigation bar, select invoices. Under the status here, you see the status of all the invoices, the list of all the invoices you have in your business. Let's start with the first one. The first one here shows the invoice is overdue. What it means is that the invoice has passed the due date. So you want to see more details about this invoice, you click on it and you can see more details about the invoice. You can see the date the invoice was created. You can see the due date of the invoice. You can see that the invoice is overdue and the invoice wasn't sent. So if you want to take any action, you click on this downward arrow beside more action. So you can choose to send the customer a reminder. You click on send reminder to send the customer a reminder. So that's the first invoice status, overdue. Overdue means the invoice has passed the due date. You also see this next invoices is due in 19 days. This is an open invoice, but it's not due yet. So if you want to see more details about the invoice, you click in the status here. You can see the invoice is due in 19 days. The invoice was not sent. This is the total amount. This is the date the invoice was created. This is when the invoice will be due. The invoice is open. The first one we checked was overdue. The difference between overdue and open invoice is that the overdue invoice has passed the due date, but the open invoice is not yet due. That's the difference. So overdue invoices and open invoices, they are both unpaid invoices. But for overdue invoices has passed the due date. But the open one is not yet due. So you can see that this invoice here will be due in 90 days. You see the other status you can have? You have the partially paid status here. So the customer paid some money for this invoice. You can see the initial amount. So the invoice was 1,800. This is the balance. So it means the customer paid 1,000. So it's partially paid. If you want to view more details about this invoice, you just click on the invoice, click on it, so you can see more information about the invoice. You can see it's open, it's paid, is the amount they paid 1,000. So if you want more action, if you want to send the customer a reminder, just click in this downward arrow and select send reminder to send the customer a reminder. So let's see other status, other invoice status in the software. Deposited. Deposited means the customer has paid for the invoice and you've deposited the money into the bank. That's what it means. So if you want to see more details about this invoice, you just click on it. The invoice state, that's the invoice activity. You click on it and you see it was paid and it's been deposited. That's what it means. So it's look at the activity on the invoice. Initially it was an open invoice. You can see when it was open. You can see when the customer paid. Look at the date the customer paid for the invoice. And it was deposited into the bank. So you have another status here, which is paid. This one is paid, but it's not deposited. If you click in it, you see more details. You see the invoice activity. So the invoice has been paid. You can see the date the invoice was opened. You can see the date the invoice was paid. It was paid by cash. And you see the invoice is not yet deposited. What it means is that when you receive the payment for this invoice, you entered it into your deposited funds account. So if you want to, the action you need to carry out with the paid invoice that's not deposited, you need to deposit the money in the account, in the bank account. To deposit a money that is sitting in the deposited fund account, what you do is to click on the plus new icon. So let's see the invoice very well. It was paid 12th of February 2024. So the action you need to carry out if the invoice is not deposited and you need to deposit it in the account, you click on the plus new icon. Under order, you click on bank deposit. So you need to deposit the money into the account. Make sure the right account is selected, the bank account is selected, and the date is the right date, which is the 12th of February. For make sure the right date is entered. Make sure the right account is entered. They need to tick on the invoice here, select it here, and click on save and close. We click on save and close and we'll go and check it again. We'll see that the status has changed. So it's very important knowing the status of your invoice will help you track payment. You know the status, you know where the invoice is at, the stage the invoice is at. If we click on refresh button, so we'll check the status of the invoice now. We'll see the status of that same invoice has changed. So let's look at the invoice now. The status has changed. It's not deposited. If we check the status again, view details, you see open, paid, and deposited. So whenever an invoice is when you see paid and it's not deposited, it means the money is sitting in the undeposited account. So what you need, the action you need to take is to deposit that money into the bank account. So I've showed you how to deposit the money. You need to go to the bank deposit and ensure the right account is chosen and the right date is entered. Then you select the payment and you click save. So that's how you deposit the money into the account, into the bank account. You can see another status, voided. What this means is that when you void an invoice, it means you cancelled the invoice. The invoice was cancelled. It means the customer doesn't need to pay anymore for the invoice. When you cancel an invoice, let's just see more details about this voided invoice. When you click on it, you can see more other details about the invoice. You can see the date the invoice was created. You can see the due date. So, but when it's voided, it becomes zero. The amount becomes zero. Means the customer doesn't need to pay any amount for that, for the invoice. You see when it was opened, and you see it's voided now. The difference between a voided invoice and a deleted invoice. When you delete an invoice, it's completely the transaction is completely removed from the system. The only way you can see know anything about that invoice is when you go to the audit log, where the history is recorded in the transaction in the software. That's the only way to see history about a deleted invoice. When you delete an invoice, it means you remove it completely. Everything about the invoice is removed. When you void an invoice, you can still see information about the invoice. You can see the products and services. You can still see the description. You can see the date the invoice was created, and you can see the due date, but the amount becomes zero. So that's the major difference between a voided invoice and a deleted invoice. So if you want to see a deleted invoice, you want to see more information about the deleted invoice, is to go to the audit log. So to go to the audit log, you click on the setting cog here. Under Tools, select Audit Log. So the event is, click on the event, deleted or voided transaction. So you can see this invoice that was deleted. So if you want to see more details about this invoice that was deleted, you just click on the view under history. So you can see the details about, so you can see the details about the invoice that was deleted. So the only thing you can do about a deleted invoice, if you need to, is to recreate the invoice. I hope you find this video very helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel.